Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show, I've been waiting for quite some time for the series to develop, and of course, just put aside some time to take on such a monumental and beautiful piece of writing. Now, you guys may remember 02321's work from the Agent series in the woods, and if you enjoy that one as much as I'm sure you're going to love this one as well. But of course, as ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. Well, it really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story. Entitled, My Work as a PI, Part 3. Let's get straight into that. It was 2 weeks until Nick contacted me again about a second case. Even with my savings account looking pretty nice from all the extra jobs I was pulling, I still got excited seeing his number come up on my phone. Nicholas Flint was a government agent that killed supernatural creatures. He wasn't human, but beside his unnatural hair colour and blank stare, he didn't appear too strange. His monotone voice was the oddest thing about him, as it made his intentions difficult to understand, but overall he was easy to get along with. I worked as a pretty novice PI and I doubted my skills would be of any use to him. Turns out, just being human helped in some occasions. I wished he would have contacted me sooner. Still, getting the extra job through him helped a lot. I may have been risking my life every time I accepted, but it was well worth it. This time, we met in my office instead of my car. He brought along a case folder, and I was surprised a secret government agent dealing with supernatural creatures used mundane things like case folders. I offered him some coffee, which he turned down, and so we got straight into the case. There have been several missing homeless men recently. Some bodies have turned up torn to pieces, and we cannot place what kind of creature would do such damage. Also, it's difficult to determine which homeless men are victims or have just left the area for different reasons. Nick explained as he started to arrange the photos on my desk. Each photo was fairly gruesome. I wanted to be a cop, but in the end was unable to do so. I looked up things like this for my own preparation for the job I'd never gotten, but my stomach still twisted at the sight. Each person was taken apart in different ways and just left in wooded areas to be found or eaten by animals. Some scavengers had got at them, making it difficult to find the original damage in the bodies due to it being eaten away. I sat looking over each photo, wondering why Nicky asked me to help him. I didn't know a thing about supernatural creatures. I didn't even know they were real until recently. I also wasn't a bite mark expert, and I couldn't tell him what had been munching on these bodies in the woods. I do my best to help, but I don't exactly have the resources to be much use. I admitted after I placed a photo back down on my desk. This case is very low on the list of priorities. I currently do not have a partner, and my supervisors will not let me work in the field without one. Unless I have someone working with me, I cannot look into this case and no one else is interested. He explained as he started to clean off my desk of the files. So, just me being around is helpful? I asked with my arms crossed. Exactly, he said with a small nod. I didn't know how I felt about that. It didn't help my self-esteem in the slightest, knowing I was just there to look pretty. In fact, Nick could have gotten anyone else to fill in for his partner. I was the only person free and willing to do a case no one but him cared about. How does your job even work? Doesn't your boss give you cases to solve? How come you can just pick the ones you want? I asked, wondering about his work. I knew less about Nick than I did about supernatural creatures. At times I'm assigned jobs that are suited to my skill set. If none comes up, I'm able to pick from any open cases within reason. There are some creatures out there far too powerful for certain agents to confront. I am the only one interested in closing smaller cases. If I hadn't taken the witch case or been interested in this one, they would have been passed along to the hunters. Nick said, and his voice was making me a little sleepy, despite the information being interesting. The what? I asked, confused. Hunters are a human-run organization with the main goal to kill every supernatural creature.
They may use magic to fight, but refuse to work with creatures of the night. The corporation I work for mostly uses supernatural agents. We tolerate each other to get cases solved.
I never would have assumed there was more than one agency dealing with things that lurked in the night. Well, it made sense. After nearly getting killed by the witch, I understood how some people could hate anything like that. If Nick wasn't as easygoing as he was, I would have had a bad view on supernatural creatures as a whole. That witch was evil, but Nicky was so non-threatening. It made me think that there were good creatures out there. Whatever was killing the homeless man on this current case was giving creatures a bad rep. And I wondered just how often things like this happened, or how it was possible for it to be mostly unnoticed. Alright, let's get started. If we solve this quickly, we can finish some other backlog cases for you. I stood up with my car keys in hand. I was the only employee in my small PI company, so I didn't need to tell anyone that I was leaving the office for the day. Nearly all of my jobs came through email, and the rest were directed to my cell phone. I didn't need an office, but it made me seem more official, and I found clients felt more comfortable meeting in one as needed. I locked up wondering when I would be back and how dangerous this job would turn out to be. And we drove to a city away, and Nick directed me to a local park near the downtown area. I could already see signs of a homeless population that only got worse as we got closer to the main street. There was a man's shelter right next to the park, with about 5 people hanging out at the front steps. I followed Nick towards the building, unsure of what our first task would be. And because he was wearing a suit, it looked pretty official. No one really bothered us as we walked past the huddle of people. A smell drifted out from a small crowd, and I forced myself not to react. Trash littered the stone stairs, and I hoped I didn't step on anything too unpleasant. Inside the building, it smelled of harsh cleaning chemicals and unwashed bodies. A tired-looking receptionist looked at us warily, not wanting the trouble a man in a suit would bring. After showing her his badge and introducing himself, Nick brought out some photos, but didn't offer them to her just yet.
I'm sorry to bother you, miss, but recently we found some deceased men. 5 have been from this area, but the other 3 are yet to be identified. If you are willing, would you look at these photos and see if you recognize any of them?
Nick asked in an official tone. I stood back watching the exchange. The receptionist looked as if it wasn't her first time dealing with something like this. She didn't even look surprised when asked to look at the photos of the dead. Do you have a warrant? For privacy reasons, we cannot give out the names of the men who stay here. She replied stiffly.
I do not have a warrant for a list of names. You may contact the local police department to confirm my identity and the fact that I am working on this case. I can come back with one, however, but I wish to have the names of these men as fast as possible.
Nick admitted, his voice still without emotion. Why? These men don't really have anyone looking for them. I never heard of a cop wanting to deal with people that stay here, let alone care about their names. She replied in a worn-out tone. She wasn't trying to be cruel, just stating some facts. It was her words that finally made me realize why we were the only ones looking for what killed these men. I looked around the small entrance, seeing chairs that looked older than myself, bolted down to the floor. The building was barely staying together. The small amount of people who cared about the homeless in that city worked with nearly no resources or help. I imagine this was a common sight across the country. I looked back over when Nick responded to the woman.
I don't like the name John Doe. I hate seeing it on 3 photos.
He admitted while glancing at the paper in his hands. We all remained silent for a few heavy seconds. Finally, the receptionist held out her hand to look over the photos. She stared at them for a while, trying to place their faces. And after some very careful consideration, she wrote down some names on the back of each paper. I've never seen them this cleaned up, so I'm not too sure about the 3rd one, but I'm fairly certain this is who these men are. I haven't seen them for a while and hope they didn't turn out like this. If I give you some other names, could you check on the ones that also haven't been in for a while? It could be all sorts of reasons, but... She trailed off, looking a bit worried about keeping her job after giving us information, but knowing it was worth it in the end. Nick nodded and took a few more minutes getting some names, descriptions, and common hangout spots to keep an eye on. He thanked the older woman after everything was collected. He sounded insincere, but that was just because of his odd tone of voice. I could tell he truly respected the receptionist for helping out. We said thank you again before then, heading out ourselves. Hey, is having their names going to help us figure out what kind of monster killed them? I asked once we walked down the stairs and out of earshot of the crowd that had gotten larger since we were inside.
No, the names add nothing to the case. My job is to only find and kill the creatures causing the trouble. We leave the rest to the police, but getting a location of where they normally stay around helps. We can scout out those areas or ask around for some other information.
Nick said as we made our way back to the car. He didn't really need to come by the shelter, asking for local homeless hangouts. Just driving around was enough to find a few. We could easily ask any of those people about other spots. This trip was really about trying to find out who these men were. I paused my car door, looking over at Nick and wondering about him. I didn't understand how someone who lacked a natural expressive face cared more about others than most people I'd met. He caught me staring and I couldn't explain myself. Are you really going to interview homeless people about whether they've seen anything strange while wearing that? I asked. He glanced down, a crease of confusion on his normally placid face.
What's wrong with my suit?
I felt as if it would take too much effort to explain it to him. We started off to conduct our interviews, but I made Nick stay in the car. I bought some coffee and some sandwiches to hand out while I asked questions. I learned a few smokes also helped getting people to talk. I listened patiently, hoping to hear anything that was interesting. And I quickly found out this process was nerve-wracking. Nick needed to come in and rescue me from awkward situations when I started talking to someone who clearly was on the streets due to mental illness or drug abuse. I didn't find them dangerous, but when they started ranting about the government stealing their blood and thoughts, I felt my shoulders tense. By the end of the day, I felt exhausted, and without having found anything worthwhile, Nick and I parked the car near a park and got out to stretch our legs and also look over our notes. What do we know so far? I asked him. I was eating a leftover sandwich as my dinner. Nick refused one. I have yet to see him eat or drink anything. Did he even need to eat or drink? I'll pin that as a mystery to solve later. He opened his small notebook and I noticed it was a different colour than the one he had when we first met.
Each man was taken from different locations, as far as we can tell. So far, all 8 were taken without anyone noticing, and the last known locations are foggy at best. All the strange events we gathered today do not match any supernatural creature I am aware of, nor does the manner of death match any creatures.
Nick responded as he looked over his notes. So, we got nothing? I said with a sigh.
We have nothing we can make sense of so far. Efforts are never wasted. They'll prove useful, even if it means we just need to wait for results.
I wish I could be as forward-thinking as Nicky was. I saw our entire day as a waste and he thought of it as time put towards results. I tossed my sandwich wrapper into the trash while wondering what to do next. So we're going to do what? Camp out and watch some random homeless meet up, spot until we see something? I asked. It was starting to get dark and I didn't know if we planned on staying in this city overnight. If we were going to keep an eye on some hotspots, waiting for some monster to appear, or we would need more manpower, or to get extremely lucky. Nick was looking through his notebook in the fading light, trying to find something. After he spotted what he wanted, he snapped it shut to focus his attention back into me.
The one spot is near a bridge, or rather a tunnel. If there is a grocery store nearby, we need to purchase some pickled eggs. I believe there is someone else we can ask.
Huh? Without explaining himself further, he got into the car, ready to go. I just needed to trust him. Nick was the expert on these things after all. I looked up some directions and a short trip later, we were on our way towards a bridge with 2 massive jars of pickled eggs. I still didn't understand what was going on as I followed behind Nick, carrying 1 bag of the eggs, while Nick had the other. Under the bridge was a pedestrian tunnel and a bike path. Above it was an ancient-looking set of railroad tracks that saw very limited use. Dim yellow lights lined the tunnel. and Nick put her arm out to stop me from walking too close to the tunnel's entrance. Once he knew I would stay put, he placed a jar of eggs in front of the entrance. Then he walked back over to where I was standing, as each light inside the tunnel started to go out, one by one, until the entire entrance was pitch black. Not even the surrounding light from the park we stood inside leaked into the darkness. I waited, with fear starting to seep into my stomach. Anything could happen. I trusted Nick, but he was a bit clueless at times. Wasn't exactly safe if I guessed acted in a way he didn't expect. And I waited, and then I started to hear the wind. It took me a few seconds to realize that was not the wind blowing through the tunnel. It sounded too rhythmic, almost like breathing, and it was getting closer. I should have brought a gun after getting involved with these jobs. If I lived, I swore I would get one as fast as possible. Fear started to show on my face, but Nick remained as calm as ever. The breathing sounds got louder and louder until finally something appeared from the tunnel. It was a finger so massive it barely fit through the entrance. It was twisted and grey, tipped with a long claw of a nail. Using a chipped nail, it brought the jar of pickled eggs into the darkness, and some wet sounds came until something else peeked out from that dark tunnel. An eye. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. I told you it was an intense one. Absolutely chest-pounding and totally refreshing. What a magnificent and mysterious start to this series. And from our good friend 02321 from over on Reddit, No Sleep. Many chapters to this series, guys and girls, so I hope you bear with us as we try to get at least 1 or 2 a week up. Of course, as ever though, please do take a second to head over to the link, which I'll leave in the description box below. That'll take you over to 02321's Reddit profile, where you can definitely lose yourself for a good few hours with the awesome content of stories and poems. As ever though, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help both the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. A big welcome to all the brand new Cryptid Crew members. I hope you're enjoying the backlog of content. And we'll be trying to update that monthly as we get back into the swing of things and regular schedule. All you beautiful subscribers, keep your notification bells on as well. Plenty of live streams and re-listen parties coming up over the next few weeks and months as we try to engage with you more and bring back the old school feel of the channel. One big happy family, full of cryptid craziness and bad dad jokes. I hope you're all well and happy and had a fantastic week at work, school, or whatever it is that you do, and your family and friends are well. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry. Cliffhanger.
Everybody likes cliffhangers.
Everybody likes hangers.
Some bodies have turned up torn to pieces, and we cannot place what kind of creature would.
I never would have assumed there was more than one agency dealing with things that lurked in the night. Well, it made sense. After nearly getting killed by the witch, I understood how some people could hate anything If Nick wasn't as easygoing as he was, I would have been If Nick wasn't as easy as it was. If Nick wasn't as easy. A smell drifted out from a small crowd and I forced myself not to react. Trash littered the trash littered boom. Bunga.